Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is Mango Oblivion Plays, and today I'm going to be going over the Antiquity Age live stream that Firaxis Studios did for Sid Meier's Civilization VII. This live stream happened back on the 12th, and it is on YouTube, so you can go and check it out and watch it all for yourself. But here's a quick little summary if you don't want to watch the 2-hour long live stream. Let's begin. First of all, there's a lot of new information we learned about cities and settlements in this live stream. First of all, the new settler unit is called a founder, and that founder unit is only allowed at the very beginning of the game, and it creates their capital city at the beginning. Traditional settlers establish towns, which are minor cities, which you can then eventually grow into cities. Towns can collect yields and share them with cities. All of the production in a town is converted into gold because you can only purchase buildings in towns with gold. Towns can be upgraded into cities, like I said, and they can be specialized in the yields that they push out. City growth in the game is going to be linear and chosen by the player. So basically every time you create a district, you're going to be expanding your borders. So your borders aren't going to expand automatically anymore. You are going to be able to determine where you're growing with your city borders, which is pretty neat. Every time you build a district, there will be a culture bomb that envelops the tiles around that district, which will expand your cities. There is a settlement limit, but as they stressed often, it is a soft limit. You must have 3 tiles in between your settlements, but other than that, you can settle as many times as you want. If you do go over that limit, though, there is a penalty which occurs on your happiness level, which is a new mechanic in the game. The settlement limit can be changed with policies and abilities, so you can increase that value, but there will be penalties for going over it. Resources are now managed by the player. So for example, if you get a luxury resource like salt, for example, you can choose which settlement gets the benefits of that resource. So it's no longer empire-wide. You can kind of decide where everything goes, and that's going to make things a little bit more strategic. Capturing an enemy city will reduce it to a town, and then it has an occupation penalty until you take out the entire civ, in which case then there would no longer be an occupation since that civ no longer exists. You can also choose to raise cities, but this action now takes multiple turns, so the city kind of falls apart over 2 or 3 turns instead of just happening all at once, which kind of makes sense if you think about it in real life. Let's switch over to units. Scouts, like we mentioned last time we talked about Civilization VII, have some new abilities, but they also said that your dog companion can be changed and upgraded in game. They didn't explain how exactly, but they did say it was going to be part of the game, so that's something to look forward to. The new army commander units are unlocked through the civic tree, which we saw in the gameplay in this live stream. So now we know how to unlock the army commander. There is a civic that specifically unlocks it. They did explain that commanders respawn over time when they are defeated, and it's a certain amount of turns. Their commander radius can also be expanded through upgrades. So instead of just having a 1 tile wide commander radius, you can upgrade that to 2. And only battles that happen within the radius provide experience points. Commanders' movement is also increased when units are absorbed in them. So when they have absorbed units to travel faster, their movement is increased. Settlers are no longer captured in battle. And so now they have a defensive strength and can fight back. So if like a barbarian is attacking your settler, it's not going to be destroyed immediately. It's going to fight back and it has the potential to escape. However, if they are defeated, the unit is destroyed and there's no way to regain that unit. You're going to have to build a new settler. There's also a new trade unit, which is now called a merchant, and merchants gather resources from other civilizations. You have to move your merchant to the other civilization manually, but then it will set up a trade route. It'll also create a road between those cities, and there's a trade route limit with each civ based on your relationship status. Only certain civilizations will have great people now, and I think they kind of alluded to that being Greece, but a couple others as well. So great people are now unique to certain civilizations, but there are other things that are taking their place, kind of. So there's like a kind of a twist there. And then all civs will have different looking units. So every civ's warrior unit will look different. Every civ's settler unit will look different. It's going to be a very diverse looking game, and I think it's going to be awesome. Moving on to the government and social policy sphere, they did say that social policies are going to be card-based again, and now governments are tied to celebrations, which is part of the happiness mechanic I mentioned earlier. Celebrations occur when your civilization hits a happiness threshold, so there's a certain number you have to hit, and if you have a certain amount of happiness in your civilization, it'll grow until it hits that threshold. Once that happens, your government is going to provide you with the two options you're going to get for bonuses for that celebration. So for instance, if you are an oligarch, you'll either be able to get like, let's say like extra food or extra culture, right? If you're an autocrat, you'll have extra military bonuses or extra science. So there's two options you get for each celebration. Every celebration you achieve during an age unlocks a social policy card slot, which means you're going to be able to enact more policies as you celebrate more often in your empire. There's also a new milestone system, which is a way to provide goals for the player throughout the age. There are 4 paths, like mentioned previously, in each age, and it's tied to conquest, science, economy, and culture. If you complete a full milestone tree, you're going to unlock a golden age policy for your age transition. They did mention, however, that if you completely ignore one and you get 0 things done on one of the tracks, it will allow you to select a dark age policy, which apparently are powerful but have very powerful drawbacks as well. So something to consider if you're deciding to ignore one of these paths. The game also is going to be having more story elements weaved into it, right? This game is based on history, and so they're really trying to make kind of a narrative focus for this game. The goody huts, or the tribal villages, will now provide choices that include some storytelling elements, and they can gain quests, or you can take money, or you can receive other resources through these special things. Triggers for these narrative events can be very complex, or they can be as simple as, I'm this civ. Let's switch over to the diplomacy mechanic in Civilization VII. In the new diplomacy system, your approach to each civilization is key, and there's lots of benefits to forming close relationships with other civs. Influence is the new in-game currency that's going to help you in diplomacy, so getting a lot of that is going to help you out in the long run. There is no deal page. You're not going to be trading individual items like you did before. That's all going to be done by merchants. The system is now revolved around relationship building. So being in contact with your neighbors, talking about them, doing initiatives together is going to build that positive relationship and help you get more out of your neighbors. Influence can also be utilized in warfare. So for instance, they talked about how if you declare a surprise war, you're going to take an influence penalty, and it's going to make it harder for you to fight that war because you decided to do it for a surprise war instead of using a casus belli. They did mention that faith and religion are going to be back in Civilization VII. However, it's going to work a lot differently, and I think that's why potentially there won't be a faith victory yet. For instance, in the Antiquity Age, only pantheons are going to be religious, or the only religious aspect available in the Antiquity Age would be a pantheon. Actual religion is not going to come until the Exploration Age, and that kind of represents how the establishment of powerful organized faith didn't really happen until much later in world history. So you're going to be able to unlock pantheons in the earlier part of the game, but you won't be able to actually unlock a religion until later. So we haven't seen how that's going to work yet. Hopefully in one of the future live streams, they're going to go into more detail about how that's going to work. A little bit more on combat. When a military unit attacks a commander with troops absorbed in it, all troops within that commander are going to be taking damage. If a commander is defeated, the units sprawl out over the map, and they are not instantly defeated, so they're going to sprawl out with like half hit points. Naval combat is in the game, but they did say that there's going to be more of it in the exploration era, and it's going to be very limited in the antiquity era. So there's going to be very limited naval options, and they're not going to be as prominent as they are going to be in later eras. Let's talk a little bit about the civilizations that they have introduced so far into the game. If you go to the Civilization VII website, these are the 6 civilizations that they have introduced in the Antiquity era so far. Ascom, which is a African civilization, Egypt, which we all know pretty well, Greece, the Maya, a South American civilization, Rome, and Moria, which is basically Antiquity in India. So these are the 6 that we know about in the Antiquity Age. They have assured us there are more than just 6. There will be a lot more options to pick from in the Antiquity Age. These are the ones we know so far. As far as the Exploration Age goes, we know about several options now because of this live stream. The first one we know about is the Shawnee, which we know about the pre-release stuff. So that one is one that we know because of that. We've also learned about Mongolia through the various things they've shown off, the Songhai, the Normans, which were introduced in this latest live stream, the Abbasid Empire, which is basically the Islamic Caliphate, and then the Chola, which is the second Indian civilization. They did mention that India is going to have a solid through line all the way through the ages of specifically Indian civilizations. So there's the Maurya, the Chola, and then there's a third one in the modern age that is also India. So you'll always have a straight connection of Indian civs if you play as India. Not every other civilization will have that. We also currently know about 2 modern day civilizations, not officially, but based on different leaders we've seen, like Benjamin Franklin and Napoleon. We know that France and the United States are going to be in the modern era. So we do know that those exist. Now, the most important thing from this live stream is that we did go through an age transition. So we got to see the whole thing in action. And so this is basically how it works. There's a timeline that is going to be on, I can't remember if it's either your government or your civic menu. And that timeline is going to fill up as you do things. And eventually it's going to hit crisis point. When it hits the crisis point, you'll have to deal with some crisis policies. You have to deal with some negative effects. And eventually you're going to get through that crisis, and that's going to cause a change in your empire. Once you complete that crisis, you'll go to a selection page where you're going to earn attribute points based on what you accomplished in the age. You're going to spend those points on different bonuses that you want to have going forward. You'll then get to keep some traditions, which are powerful social policies that are going to go with you throughout the game. You'll be able to adopt some legacies, which are unlocked via milestones. And then you're going to be able to choose a new civilization from available choices. In the game, they played as Egypt, and then, or no, they played as Rome, and then they got 3 options available to them. It was the Normans, the Abbasids, and there was another option that they didn't show us. So there will be options that are unlocked based on how you did, who you were, etc. Then finally, the last thing you're going to be able to do is change the location of your capital to another settlement. So basically you can decide, hey, you know what, Rome was really great for this age, but next age is going to be a lot of like navy and exploring sort of things. So I'm going to pick a new capital on the coast. Once you do that, you'll boot back up into the game as your new civilization. You'll have all of the things you had prior to that, but there will be new stuff to unlock, new technologies to explore, and all of those different things. So the game continues. You don't lose anything. Really, you're just going to be building on top of what you accomplished in the age before, which I think is pretty neat. That's basically everything that was in the Antiquity live stream for Civilization VII a couple of days ago. It's a great video, and I absolutely encourage you to go and watch the entirety of it. But if that's not something you're up for, and this is how you're going to get your information, I'm glad that you came here. And we'll be back with more Civilization VII news as more information is released. This has been Mang Oblivion Plays, and I hope you're just as excited as I am for the next installment in Sid Meier's Civilization. See ya.